Hey everyone, we're just going to be talking about lesson 1-1 today. First lesson of the year for our Algebra 2 class. Just kind of give you some context. I do have these notes. Unfortunately, this is separate from the book. However, I will post these within your Google Classroom. So if you would like, you can pull these up and actually go through, write these down if that's what you so choose, or you could even pull this up and write on it directly from your computer. Okay. For today's lesson, we're going to kind of start into, I would say, kind of like an interesting topic in Algebra 2 in general, in the fact that we're going to start creating equations, okay? One of the big things you need to understand with Algebra 2 is that we're going to start to take our math from Algebra 1 and we're going to start applying it to certain situations, okay? Now, today is going to be pretty basic overall when we first start that aspect, but over time, we're going to start building up. We're going to take knowledge from Algebra 1, geometry, and we're going to start using that and applying it in certain areas, okay? On top of that, we're going to start learning new material as well. So there's going to be kind of a mixture of how you actually see math this year. There's the applied setting of like using it within a certain situation. And then there's the actual, learning setting where you're going to be learning new material. Today, I wouldn't say necessarily this is like new material for you, but the challenge today is going to be taking a word problem and creating an equation out of it. Okay, so my goal for this lesson is to kind of make things easier for you using certain tricks, things you're going to look for to kind of help you out. Okay. First and foremost, let's just talk about some keywords. Before we even start any of this lesson, you got to understand that there are some keywords that you need to see. Okay. So the keywords for today are basically going to be variable. Anytime you have a variable, just to kind of give you some idea on that, a variable is something that's basically the random number that we are trying to figure out. Okay. These are your X's, your Y's, your Z's, things like that. Okay. We want to be able to know when are we going to use these variables. And the key thing in math is that they use keywords to help basically, show this. The keywords I have are both each and per. Okay, let me fix that real quick. Each and per are pretty much denoted as variable terms because they're going to help guide you and tell you like, hey, it is this per how many you have. Okay. The next key thing you want to understand is that your answer, which is typically given to you in these problems, is always going to be denoted by another keyword like total or profit. Okay, these are going to help kind of guide you in telling you where certain things going to go within the problem. Now, once we get into the problem, once I go through one of these with you, hopefully these keywords start to make sense, but they're going to be key things you want to look out for. Okay. Last but not least, today we're going to be talking about one variable equations, which means we're not worried about multiple like X, Y, Z, anything like that. We're worried about a single variable. Now, whatever letter we want to denote that with, we can. Today we'll be using a lot of things like X, but that's kind of the idea of today, one variable. So let's go ahead and get into it. Let's just read the first problem. Susan makes and sells purses. The purses cost her $12 each to make, and she sells them for $25. This Saturday, she is renting a booth at a craft fair for $60. The first problem wants us to write an equation that can be used to find the number of purses Susan must sell to make a profit of $250 at the fair. So there's a lot going on there. So for step one, let's break it down. Okay, let's break each problem down first. Let's grab some important information. First off, we know the purses cost her $12 each to make. Okay? And we even see our first key word, which is each. It costs her $12 each. Okay? The next one is she sells them for $25. Now, I know the word each isn't in there, but we can pretty much assume right away that if she's selling two purses, she's making $50. Okay? She's making $25 per purse. We can assume that within this problem. The next key piece of information is that it costs $60 just to rent the booth, as well as the fact that she wants to make a profit of $250. Okay? Now, those are the four numbers that they gave us. Those are the four that we have that we can kind of build off of. So let's go into the next step. How are we going to build this problem? Well, to do this, let's try to really think about how we actually find a profit. Okay? For those of you who don't know profit yet, profit is basically how much money you take. All right? It takes basically how much money you made, takes away the cost, and that's how much money you get to leave that fair with. So let's try to figure out what is a profit and how do we find that? So we want to try to figure out how much our profit is. Well, profit is going to be equal to how much money you make. So money minus the actual cost of whatever you're selling. Okay. For example, if you have a lemonade stand and you make $50, but the lemonade costs 25 to just have in the first place, you're only going to make $25 profit. Even though you had $50 that day, you got to take your cost into account. And this is kind of the basic idea. Profit equals money minus cost. So let's build off of this. Let's start thinking about how we can actually put some values into this. Well, first off, they tell us the profit, okay? The profit is given to us right here. We know exactly how much money we want to make. So we can even fill in, we need $250 when this is all said and done, okay? Next, the money. How much money are we making? Well, that's when we have to go back up top here and really think about it. We have $60 just for the craft fair. That's a cost. And the purses are going to cost her $12 each to make. So where are we actually making money at? And that's where this key term comes into play. She is selling them at $25 a piece. So our money that she's pulling in is going to be 25. But it's not just 25, okay? She's not just selling one purse, she's selling multiple of them, but we don't know how many she needs to sell yet. So I'm going to make this 25x, because x is going to be the number of purses that she's actually trying to sell to these people. Okay, so that's going to be how much money we pull in, 25x. Last but not least, we got to figure out the cost. And in this case, there's actually two different costs. So first off, I'm going to do subtract. And I want to think about how much is the purse actually going to cost her? Well, we have that line up here. It costs her $12 each to make. So I'm going to write this out as 12x. We have to subtract 12x from the situation because it's $12 for the cost, and we don't know how many purses she has. Before we continue on, though, there's actually one more cost, okay? We cannot forget about this piece of information over here. The craft fair just cost her $60 to be there. So we also need to subtract 60 from this equation. And from there, we have basically built an equation for us. Now, to make our lives easier, we can start simplifying this, okay? And it kind of leads into problem 2 as well. If I simplify 25x minus 12x, that would give me 250 equals 13x minus 60. From this point, we can actually move on and solve the rest of this problem. Okay, they want us to solve and interpret the solution. So to solve this, now we have to actually build off our algebra skills. First step, we always got to try to get this x by itself. So we want to try to get this term by itself. So to move the 60 over, we're going to do the opposite and add 60 to the other side. That would give us 310. 250 plus 60 is 310 equals 13x. Now for our last step, we got to try to figure out how many purses is it going to take to actually make that much money. Well, now we want to try to get the x by itself. And one of the key things you'll hear me say throughout the year is that if you ever want to try to do something algebraically or get rid of a number, move it to the other side, anything like that, always do the opposite of what's given. Technically, this is 13 times x. If I want to fix this, I'm going to take this and divide by 13 on each side. Those would cancel, leaving the x by itself, and we're left with 310 divided by 13, which all I have to do is grab a quick calculator here. Same with you. If you want to try to solve this out, I'd recommend grabbing a calculator, working this through. Oops. 10 divided by 13. This comes out to be 23 0.8. Okay? Which, being a decimal, we can't sell 0.8 of a purse. We're basically going to assume that it's going to take 24 purses to get to $250. Okay? So now just kind of recap this. Let's just talk about how we actually solve this out. We really want to think about this, okay? The whole idea of these problems is just to break it down. Try to think about what are they giving you? What money do you have? What's your cost? And then how can I use that to find a total? Okay, as you can see here, we took the profit. And all we have to do is think, well, how do I figure out how much money I made? Well, I take the money and subtract it from the cost. And then from there, you just slowly start building the equation up. Let's go ahead and just quickly talk about one more. If I look at example C here, Marco mowed 8 of his neighbor's lawns. He charged $22 for a short driveway, $37 for a long driveway. Okay? Same thing. Okay? We want to try to build an equation based on the information. To do this, we got to kind of lead into number 6 and kind of build the rest of this up. If Marco made $266 in one day, write an equation that can be used to determine the number of lawns he mowed when X of his driveways are short. So let's go pull some important information here. Marco mowed 8 of his neighbor's lawns, so he has 8 total lawns mowed that day. He charged $22 for the short driveway, $37 for the long driveway. And then there's 2 pieces of information that are left that are very important. First off, he made $266 in one day. So that's his profit. We know that right off the bat that is his profit. The last important piece of information is they actually told you what X is. X are the short driveways. So I even like to go over here and say X is the short. Okay, X is the short driveways. Okay, that's an important piece of information. X is going to be our short driveways themselves. So let's try to think about how we solve this. Okay, basically for this one, we got to think. Its profit, just like the last problem, it's going to be equal to. And then for this one, we have to think, like, how are we going to have a total profit here? Well, it's $22 for a short driveway. So I'm going to say it's $22 for a short driveway, which if we think about that, if X is the short driveway, this is going to be 22X. After that, now we got to think, okay, well, how do we figure out the $37, the long driveway? So if I'm trying to think profit, this is going to be plus 37. And this is where it gets a little bit interesting. We don't really know. We don't really have a full idea yet of how many long driveways he mowed. All we know is that he mowed 8 total driveways and that X of them were short. So what we're going to do is build almost a separate equation. So I'm going to build some parentheses here. And here's how we got to think about this. He mowed 8 total driveways. So any driveway he didn't mow, or any driveway that wasn't short, has to be a long driveway. So I'm going to take 8 minus X. Because if we think about this, if he mowed 5 short driveways, then 3 of them had to be long. If he mows 4 short driveways, then 4 have to be long, okay? Basically, we're saying within this little piece of information that whatever's left over from the short has to be the long driveway, or whatever was left over from not mowing has to be long, okay? So now we can finish this off because we know the profit. It's 266. So we can go 266 was our profit. That's going to equal the exact equation we have up top. 22x plus 37 and then 8 minus x. And we've built the equation for Marco in this problem. Okay. Thanks for watching. Please answer the last couple questions here for the Edpuzzle. And then from there, I'll see you in the Zoom class tomorrow. Thanks.